Anthea hasn't mentioned anything to me about running the meeting, so I'm sure she's planning to be here.
That is correct. I believe she was also planning to be here. This is Laura.
Okay.
I'm wondering if she's on one of the old links. I'm going to see if I can email her.
Thanks for including the link in our morning email, Laura. That helps me a lot. Anthea just got on the call.
Great. I'm glad it does. Thank you.
Hi, LaDawn. Were you starting the meeting?
No, I was just telling everyone that you hadn't told me that I'm running the meeting, so that we were waiting for you.
Got it. Yep. Sorry, all that I'm starting right at top of the hour here. My name is Anthea Martin. I'm chair of the State Housing Board. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order here. I think we have a change in the agenda, perhaps, at least from the last version that I have. So if I could ask someone to proceed to the next slide so I can just see what we have going on here, if it's still just the introduction. I believe we're going to have elections. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. So today, for today's State Housing Board meeting, we are going to have an election of officers. I believe this is something that typically occurs in April of every year. And this year, just wanted to open it up to all of the State Housing Board members to discuss how we want to move forward with officers from now until next April.
So are there term limits?
There are no term limits. I did ask Laura about that. There are no term limits for the chair. I mean, we certainly have term limits as board members, but not for chairs.
Well, if you're comfortable doing it for another year, Anthea, I think you've done a great job. And if you want to do it again, does that work for you?
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm certainly open to doing that again. And I appreciate that, LaDawn. Thanks for starting the conversation on this. I also would like to see if, if everyone else is on board with that. I would like to have you as vice chair as well for the next coming year. So up for discussion.
Yes, I would be happy to do that again if that works with the rest of the board.
Thanks, LaDawn.
I think the current team has done an excellent job of leading the board, and so I'd recommend that we keep the current officers in place.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Do we have any other discussion or perhaps a motion around it?
I'd like to make a motion if there isn't any other discussion.
I second that. This is Monique.
Thanks, Monique. All those in favor, signified by aye or hand raise.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nancy, did you have a comment or is that your hand raised for approval?
It was approval, so
Okay. Thank you. All right, excellent. Thank you all. Thanks for helping make that seamless. Appreciate your all's vote of confidence in me for at least till next April. So moving on, we've got a fairly light agenda today. First on the agenda, or the only deal on the agenda is Parkview Village, which is a THLF request. And presenting that today is Pam Gibson.
Thank you, Anthea. So today we're joined with Austin Meehan and Amy Case with Foothills Regional Housing, which is the housing authority for Jefferson County. And they have requested funding for the preservation and rehabilitation of a 96-unit apartment building in Arvada. So I will go ahead and hand this over to Amy and Austin.
Thanks, Pam. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think Amy will be joining in a second. She was called away on another call. So thanks for considering our request today. Parkview Village is a post-15-year LIHTC property in Arvada. It benefits from close proximity to transit and retail, and also has had historically strong occupancy rates. The replacement of the aging plumbing stacks drove the need for this rehab originally. Then Foothills developed the rest of the scope following discussions with our maintenance team and construction consultants, and then after reviewing the recent P&A. We see this as an important preservation opportunity for Jefferson County, as some residents have called Parkview Village home for almost 15 years. I think some actually over 15 years. Foothills will be contributing the property's existing replacement reserve as a source of equity, in addition to a fully deferred developer fee. The majority of the capital stack will be composed of market rate debt, and the property is being kept occupied during construction, which will avoid the permanent relocation of residents and will also provide cash flow to service debt throughout construction. We'll also be including we'll be converting some 60% AMI units to 50% of AMI going forward, to provide some deeper affordability at this property. So again, thanks for considering the project, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Sam?
Thank you, Anthea. Thank you, Austin, for the presentation. Looks like an important project to preserve. Had a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, in your presentation, you said that the capital stack was gonna rely heavily on market rate debt. I assume that you're getting that at a tax exempt rate at a minimum?
Yes, we are getting it at a tax exempt rate, but still, not quite as low as some other gap financing sources. We have a first mortgage on the property, and I believe that interest rate is in the 3% to 4% range, and then we have the second position debt coming in will be at 7.15.
Okay. And in the pro forma write-up, it had an acquisition cost of $1 million+ or something. Do you currently own the project? And what would that acquisition, is that just paying off the existing debt?
Yes, that was paying off the existing debt. I believe that was a few years back. That was before I joined Foothills, but that 1.6 was to pay off existing debt, correct? And the entire loan amount was $5 million.
Okay. Was there any consideration given to creating some additional 30% units rather than, I see that you've discounted or created a number of 50% units from the 60%. Was there not a market for 30%, and was that not achievable in kind of like playing with the numbers?
Yeah, based on we have a few different pieces to comply with here, such as home, and we also have AHDP units here. So I worked with our compliance team, and it was kind of just finding a balance between what units could apply to each, and the 50% when I ran the numbers worked the best in this scenario.
Okay. And you're doing a major renovation of sorts and a preservation of a project, but there's no accessible, there's no visitable, there's no sensory enhanced units. I'm just kind of curious why not?
That's correct. So I did talk with the underwriting team about creating some hobby units, and was not able to get this added to the scope yet, but we are currently exploring that with RGC. The full ADA units would have been cost prohibitive, but we are working to get some hobby units included.
Okay, thanks.
LaDawn?
I know this was in the report somewhere because I remember reading it, but remind me of what the vacancy rate is. Like, do you have enough apartments to start moving people over?
Yes. So we have been, and the vacancy rate right now is somewhere between 60 and 70%. I believe it's closer to the middle of that range, like 65%, last I checked. So we are moving from one building to another on site currently. Yep. And that has been actually going smoothly so far. Sorry, go ahead.
I thought it was 25% was the vacancy rate. Oh, well, I could be thinking about a completely different project.
I think I projected in the pro forma 60 for the
Okay.
next throughout 2025 because construction won't be complete until late summer or early fall to 2025. And so that has actually remained in line with actuals that we're seeing so far. So I think we expect it to be around 60 throughout construction and then just, slightly increase the occupancy rate to slightly increase as we get closer to the end of this project.
Okay. Mostly just making sure you had places for people to go so you could start construction.
Definitely.
I've got a few questions, Austin.
Sure.
One, just more based off of what you just shared. So 60% occupancy, about 60% today. Is that because you have held off on leasing up some of these units due to the upcoming rehab, or is that just the current demand for the project?
Yes, no, that is because of the construction schedule. And so we're, constantly, keeping up to date with how many units we need to fill for the next temporary relocation because we're relocating each building at a time, or some of these buildings are 2 phases. So each phase at a time, I should say. So the largest phase is 12 units. And so we'll, at any given time, we'll be relocating 12 units to another unit on site and then back before or when construction is complete, which is within 90 days.
Okay, that helps. And historically, what has your occupancy been? Have you been pretty stable?
Yes, I can't speak to more than the last few years before I was here, but I believe historically at, let's say, prior to the last 3 years, high 80%, I think, but I can get those numbers pulled for you.
High 80s, and that's in line with the market?
That was consistent with our other properties in the area, which generally followed the market. Yes. We have a property, Caesar Square, nearby, and they were pretty in line with each other.
Wayne, did you have something you want to add on that?
Just want to add, it was included in the write-up. Basically, we're saying that AVI at Old Town and Caesar Square are 2 comparable properties operated by Foothills Regional, and they're nearby in the Arvada area, and they have had stable occupancy rates between 93 and 96%, which is in line with what our overall portfolio of DOH projects is.
And that should be,
Right.
I think those were probably, Avi is a new build, was completed, I think early 2022. And then Caesar Square was recently rehabbed similar to what we're doing at Parkview. Correct.
And so, Austin, you said that historically it's been in the high 80s, but the market's at 93 to 96%. Are you assuming that with the rehab, you're going to also be at the 93 to 96%? Yes,
because I think the Caesar Square number, I'll have to check, but I think that was post renovation. And this property, if you compare this to Avi, our other one nearby, there really is no comparison. One is looking a lot older than the other. So we really do think that this rehab will help bring up that occupancy rate a lot.
Okay, thanks. And last question I had was, so you're deferring all of your developer fee. It also states in the write-up that you declined CDBG funds from the city of Arvada due to the high administrative cost. Do you happen to know offhand how much was offered to you for the CDBG funds?
Yes, that was 500 from the city of Arvada, 500,000, sorry.
And you declined it because the funds were really high, and I'm also going to assume that maybe instead of doing that, you're deferring all of your developer fee, which, as I'm sure you know, most time lenders don't usually like that. How does your bank feel about that? And I'd love to just hear your thoughts around that. I really hate seeing that you're deferring all of your fee.
Sure. So we have a good relationship with A&B Bank, and they were already involved on this project. because they're the first petition lender. So they haven't had any issue with deferring that developer fee. And, you know, part of that, part of the reasoning behind the higher administrative costs here is, you know, the GC that we selected, they're a smaller GC, which is why we were able to keep costs as low as we did, because we're, you know, our GC fees are a good bit lower compared to some larger companies. And so they, you know, we were kind of got the idea that they might not have the infrastructure in place to, you know, support all the administrative costs that would come with that. So I think it's kind of a trade-off between, you know, choosing a GC that can provide some good work here, but doesn't necessarily have the experience with, you know, federal compliance.
Okay. Nancy, it looks like you have a question.
Thank you. Yeah, it kind of goes along with some of this past discussion, and it was that I noticed this other gray building in the background, and you said that you had some other buildings. I want to say I think it's a great project as it is, but I'm wondering if this is in a series of kind of refurbishing and fixing up some of your other properties, if we were going to be seeing more of this kind of thing from you.
Candidly, we don't have any large scale, you know, kind of full gut rehabs like this planned. We have some kind of what I would consider capital improvement projects, you know, replacing an elevator. We also applied for GRRP funds for another project to, you know, kind of upgrade energy efficiency. So some kind of projects like that, but we don't have anything currently in the pipeline that is kind of a large scale renovation like this.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
LaDawn? You're on mute, LaDawn.
I just wanted to say I'm familiar with this building style because we see a lot of these, and I think it would be challenging to make them accessible. And I have less concerns about that because Avi is so close, and I've been in Avi many times, and it's very accessible, and it is a stunning building. So I feel like people do have options if they need the accessibility.
Great. Appreciate that comment, LaDawn. All right. Well, thank you all for the questions. Thanks for answering them, Austin.
Sure.
Appreciate your presentation here.
Thanks all.
So we will then now move to formal voting on Parkview Village. Is there anyone that needs to recuse themselves? We have a couple of proxies here today. Laura, if you are on, could you help me with who has the proxies?
It does appear that those who were going to need the proxy are attending the meeting. Candace and James, can you verify that you're on? No. Okay, if that is not the case, we have proxy for Candace. Sam will take that proxy. Well, he will cast that proxy, and James, J. Ryan will cast that proxy.
Thanks for confirming that, Laura. Does anybody need to recuse themselves from this vote? Okay, excellent. If I could ask for a motion of approval, please, for Parkview Village for funding in the amount of $2 million under THLF.
So moved.
Thanks, LaDawn.
Second.
Thanks for the second, Sam. All those in favor signified by aye or hand raise.
Aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, congratulations to Foothills Regional Housing on your award. appreciate everyone's time today, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
One moment, Anthea. We have a last minute ad. Mo Miskell would like to address the State Housing Board.
Okay. The floor is yours, Mo.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Anthea. Good to see you. To the Wild Board members, I think some of you may not know me. My name is Mo Miskell. I'm the Deputy Division Director for Division Housing. Apologies for not speaking up earlier, but you guys were jumping to it and I didn't want to interrupt the flow. Nicely done, and good job with the elections. Sorry we missed the last board meeting. Glad to get you guys back on track, and thank you, Anthea and LaDawn, for continuing the great work in those positions. I just had two things. One, Allison George sends her regards. She's on a plane to Paris, so she will hopefully arrive there safely. She's sorry to miss the meeting this month, but she will be thinking of all of you as she's at the French Open, cheering on who knows who. But no, she did want to send her regards, and I, of course, am stepping in as Deputy Division Director just to share a few remarks. One of them being, importantly, the legislative session is now finally behind us, but the hard work begins. We have several bills to implement as a Department of Local Affairs, and the Division of Housing specifically has a couple that's leading on. I'm sure you've all heard quite a bit about House Bill 24-1308. That is a big one that, in essence, codifies a lot of what you saw in the governor's executive order about contracting processing times. And we have started that implementation work. More to follow on that front. Your very own Andrew Ashley and myself are heavily involved in that bill implementation, along with others, including from our Executive Director's Office. And then there's another one you may not be as familiar with, House Bill 24-1237, which addresses childcare facilities, the development of childcare facilities across the state. And that bill specifically creates 3 new programs. Some of these terms will sound familiar to you. One of them is a toolkit and technical assistance program, the other planning grant program, and the third one a childcare facility capital grant program. Now, this is a bill that initially started with about $3 million of funding, but that got scaled down to $250,000. So more than likely, all 3 programs won't get done in the first year. The priority is the toolkit and technical assistance, very similar to what we've done with House Bill 22-1271. So once again, yours truly, Andrew Ashley, will be leading this effort. And we're thinking more along the lines of a module for that toolkit dedicated to child care facilities development. Some more to follow on that as well. But there are a lot of housing-related bills that came out of this past session. I'm not going to run through them all. I just want to highlight those 2 the Division of Housing is leading the effort on. But our Division of Local Government is involved in several. Of course, there's a tax credit bill that impacts CHAPA's operations and ours that you're all familiar with as well. So a big year for housing. I don't know if the governor has received the 2 bills I've highlighted yet. They have not been signed yet, but those 2 bills go into effect August 7th, as long as they're allowed to become law. Of course, you can always reach out to me directly if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about any of the bills that came out of this legislative session, and of course, our efforts in implementing them. That is all the time I wanted to take from you today. Thank you so much, and always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Mo. Appreciate that update. For those of you who want to dig in a little bit deeper too, Housing Colorado has a legislative update on their website that goes into some good detail as well. Are there any questions or comments for Mo? Okay, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you.